We continue our special series, The Gunfight.
Is that what's really dumping so many weapons on the street, the lax gun laws in Georgia?
We question Georgia leaders on a new law that is supposed to put thousands of guns back on the streets. Well, now to our major commitment in an unprecedented look at guns across metro Atlanta and beyond.
Yeah, critics say Georgia gun laws make it quick, they make it easy to get a gun, and so many of them end up out of state and they are used in violent crimes.
We have a need for the federal government to step up. There is no federal law that prohibits firearms trafficking.
Up next, my in-depth report. It calls for a change as CBS46 News' week-long special, The Gunfight Report, looks at the issues that affect you and your family.
But first, consider this. Part of the gun fight for law enforcement, tracking how guns go from legally being sold to being used in crime.
The ATF calls that time to crime. Last year, 467 guns used in crimes were recovered in under 3 months after they were sold. That number nearly doubles in the 12-month to 24-month period. In the 3 years and over, the ATF recovered more than 5,000 guns. You're watching CBS 46 News at 4.
Guns in Georgia. Those words alone spark debate.
All this week, CBS 46 News takes you beyond the headlines and breaks down the facts, pro and con, about guns and the law.
The CBS 46 News team looks at loopholes in the law and the money that influences gun politics.
Plus, the honest prospects about gun control and if it really works.
No matter what your stance is, this unprecedented look at the gun debate will give you new perspective on the issue.
Join us for the gunfight all this week on CBS 46 News.
Now at 4, the gunfight. Guns from Georgia are making their way to other states and being used in crimes. According to the ATF, in 2013, nearly 3,100 guns from crime scenes in other states were traced back to our state. So why does Georgia dump so many weapons into the iron pipeline? It's simple. Our state gun laws make it easy and quick to get almost any kind of gun, even gun buybacks, seizures by police. Still no guarantee those very weapons will stay out of the hands of criminals who will use them to kill.
Candidly, it's very difficult for me to lead on this because even in the state of Georgia, when we take illegal guns off the street, under Georgia state law right now, we actually have to return them or make them available to the public in some form.
It's called House Bill 60, a.k.a. the Safe Carry Protection Act. It went into effect last year and specifies where Georgia residents can carry guns. It is so stringent, it immediately tied the hands of Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed and his police chief.
We cannot destroy weapons. We have an obligation, according to the new law, that we have to maintain those weapons after they've been adjudicated.
We're inside the Atlanta PD's crime lab. Here, more than 10,000 guns, all seized from crime scenes over the years. Under new Georgia law, they're supposed to be made available to the public again. Supposed to be.
The city of Atlanta has not done that.
So right now, the city is straddling the fence, not exactly defying Georgia law, but in no way embracing it.
We are now in the process of storing all the weapons that have cleared our judiciary process. And we believe that it's really catastrophic for us to do just that.
The new law does even more, directly impacting policing in Atlanta. According to the chief, recreation centers where kids play can only be gun-free zones at enormous cost.
The law is specific. If there's a metal detector there with a sworn officer there checking, then they cannot bring a weapon into our recreation centers. But think about the manpower hours that we've got people standing at recreation centers to prevent that from taking place.
Other included provisions, people with concealed carry permits can take their weapons in bars, churches, school zones, government buildings, and yes, part of the airport too. But some argue the bill doesn't go far enough.
Anywhere where a criminal will carry a firearm is where I need, where I can protect myself. No matter where I go, I need a firearm.
Jerry Hunter, the face of Georgia Carry, an organization whose mission is to protect the rights of people to keep and bear arms, says guns aren't the issue, criminals are.
Show me a gun that's ever killed anybody. No gun has ever killed anybody. Some person misusing that gun kills somebody. Stop your crime problem, you will end that. But until you end your crime problem, until you get control of people's minds in the right way to where they will follow the laws and not want to kill people, then you will still have to put up with this, no matter where the guns come from. But I can lay my gun on this counter and we can sit here and talk for the next 15 years. Nobody's going to get killed by my gun until somebody picks it up with the desire to do something dangerous with that gun.
But others feel Georgia's loose gun laws entice criminals to our state, and too many of them embrace straw purchases and dump their cheap weapons in the Northeast for big money. Brooklyn DA Ken Thompson has seen too much of it in his jurisdiction.
We have a need for the federal government to step up. There is no federal law that prohibits firearms trafficking. And this is not an effort to stop people from rightfully owning guns. This is an effort to stop the carnage, the bloodshed that's occurring day after day on the streets of our cities throughout our country.
There is hope. Thompson points to bipartisan pending legislation introduced by U.S. Senators Kirsten Gillibrand of New York and Mark Kirk of Illinois. The proposed federal law would literally box gun runners in, the maximum penalty, 20 years. In the meantime, Atlanta's mayor says his team will do the best they can.
This is not a new issue, but what we do is try to work to be good partners in terms of getting illegal guns off the street in the city of Atlanta. And to the extent that we're successful doing that, I think that we help the flow that goes to New York. But this has been a long-standing problem, but does give me greater difficulty to help someone like District Attorney Thompson.
Is there still another loophole? It helps the criminals. It hinders law enforcement efforts. He wants laws on the books that require gun owners to report their weapons lost or stolen. And right now in the state of Georgia, he says there is no such law.
Interesting stuff. The gunfight coverage continues at 5 o'clock. We're going to be taking a look at mass shootings. A big question here. Has an armed citizen ever really been able to stop one? I'm going to take a closer look in a reality check that you're not going to see anywhere else. Then at 6 o'clock, gun porn, magazines with glossy covers and young women posing with those guns. CBS 46 investigator Karen Greer shows us how easy they are for anyone to reach, even children.
Then at 11, I tackle an uncomfortable topic for some, even me, black on black crime. We're going to hear from people living in some of Atlanta's hardest hit areas. In their own words, it is raw. There is no filter on this one. Our special coverage continues all week on CBS 46 News, CBS46.com, and our mobile app. We invite you to join this conversation on our website and through all of our social media channels.
Taking a closer look at a troubling connection, how legal guns end up being used in violent crimes across the country and right here in Metro Atlanta. It is a story you will only see right here on CBS 46.
We continue our unprecedented look at the gunfight. In tonight's reality check, we take a look at that adage, it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. Is that true when it comes to mass shootings? Has it ever happened? Reality check after the break. Guns in Georgia. Those words alone spark debate.
All this week, CBS 46 News takes you beyond the headlines and breaks down the facts, pro and con, about guns and the law.
The CBS 46 News team looks at loopholes in the law and the money that influences gun politics.
Plus, the honest prospects about gun control and if it really works.
No matter what your stance is, this unprecedented look at the gun debate will give you new perspective on the issue.
Join us for the gunfight all this week on CBS 46 News.
With all the concern in this nation about mass shootings, and there is a lot of concern, it has to be asked, what about the adage that the only thing that truly stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun? Is that true? Has it ever happened? The simple answer, yes. This is a reality check you won't see anywhere else. Immediately after a mass shooting, just like what we saw at the college campus in Oregon, the questions certainly come up. What could have been done to have stopped this? Could anyone have done anything differently? Most people will say that the answer is fewer guns. But what about those who say more guns could prevent it? Here's a simple question. Has a good guy with a gun ever actually stopped a mass shooting? Reality check They have. Or take, for instance, in Pearl, Mississippi in 1997, 16-year-old Luke Woodham stabbed and bludgeoned to death his mother at home, then killed 2 students and injured 7 people during a mass shooting at his high school. As he was leaving the school, he was stopped by the assistant principal who had gone out to get a handgun from his car. Police reports at the time indicated that Woodham was headed to a nearby junior high to continue his attack, but we should mention that it's not known for sure. And it's also worth mentioning that the assistant principal did not stop the killings at his own school. Colorado Springs, Colorado, 2007, Matthew Murray, he killed 4 people at a church. He was armed with over 1,000 rounds of ammunition, but his shooting spree was stopped by Jeannie Assam, a church member and a volunteer security guard. Murray was knocked down, he was badly wounded, and he killed himself. It is worth mentioning here that the security guard was a former police officer, and the church had put its security team on high alert because of another church shooting earlier that day. Well, near Spartanburg, South Carolina in 2012, Jesse Gates, he went to his church armed with a shotgun, kicked in the door. But Aaron Guyton, who had a concealed carry license, drew his gun and he pointed it at Gates. The other parishioners then disarmed Gates before he fired a single shot. In 2013, 22-year-old Jacob Tyler Roberts, he walked into the Clackamas County Mall in Portland, Oregon, and opened fire. He was carrying an AR-15 rifle at the time. He killed 2 people. He injured a 3rd. But according to a Portland TV station, another 22-year-old named Nick Maley was carrying a concealed handgun. Maley pulled his gun and he pointed it at Roberts. Roberts ran away, then shot himself in a stairwell. In a Philadelphia barber shop earlier this year, Warren Edwards opened fire on customers and on barbers after an argument with another man with a concealed carry permit, then shot the shooter. A police captain was quoted in this case saying, quote, "I guess he saved a lot of people in there," end quote. In Chicago earlier this year, an Uber driver with a concealed carry permit shot and wounded this gunman, Edvardo Custodio, who opened fire on a crowd of people in Logan Square. Now, it is important to mention here that there are also at least 2 cases, both from 2005, one in Tacoma, Washington, the other one in Tyler, Texas, when concealed carry holders attempted to stop shootings, and in both of those cases were not only unable to do so, but they were both shot. The man in Tacoma, he survived. The firearms instructor in Texas did not. So what you need to know is that when it comes to gun deaths in America, no one single answer will ever be able to completely stop mass shootings, period. As long as there are people intent on doing terrible things, they will be able to do them. But it's also important to know that in mass shootings, the desire of the gunman is to create as much damage as possible in the most high-profile way possible. They are by nature cowards. So the real question, is it the right, is it even the duty or responsibility of responsibly armed people to at least try to stop them if possible? That's Reality Check. Let's debate about that tonight on Twitter.
And the gunfight is the focus of our CBS46.com question of the day.
Yeah, the question posted right now on CBS46, would more citizens with guns help prevent mass shootings? So far, 76% say yes, more guns are the answer. 20% say no, the fewer guns, the better. 4% said, I'm not sure. And we have a lot more to get to as we continue the gunfight right here on CBS 46.
Here's what's coming up. At 5:30, you hear plenty of statistics about guns and gun crime, but what do they actually mean? And can the facts and figures be used to keep you and your family safe? CBS 46 anchor Kim Passoff goes inside the numbers. Then at 6 o'clock, gun porn. Magazines with glossy covers and young women posing with weapons. CBS 46 investigator Karen Greer shows us how easy they are for anyone to reach, even children.
Then all new tonight on the news at 11, I tackle what's an uncomfortable topic for some of us, including me, black on black crime. We're going to hear from people living in some of Atlanta's hardest hit neighborhoods. No filters, no holding back. And also, is the terminology itself, black on black crime, even necessary? Join us for a powerful, provocative report. First, our coverage of the gunfight continues. Last night at 11, I showed you the gun-running route known as the Iron Pipeline. New at 5:30, we're digging deeper and looking into what's being done to stop the traffic and keep everyone safe. It's a story you'll see only on CBS 46.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Tracy Hutchins.
And I'm Ben Swan. You may have seen Sharon Reed's investigation last night at 11 o'clock. The ATF tracking more than 11,000 firearms right here to Georgia, placing us 5th in the nation. Well, now law enforcement is working to cut the flow of illegal weapons into what's known as the Iron Pipeline. You see it there on your screen. It connects Atlanta to New York.
New at 5:30, Christopher King has been digging in to uncover what's being done to go after those gun runners.
We want to show you where a lot of those guns get their start on their journey up north at bus stops like this one right here in downtown Atlanta. They begin as legally bought weapons here in Georgia and often end up in drug crimes or murder.
The last case we did, we got a guy who was bringing these guns up on a bus.
Each month, gun runners transport thousands of firearms out of state on buses heading north.
In certain years, Georgia has been at the top of the list in terms of the source for illegal guns that ended up at crime scenes.
Ken Thompson is the Brooklyn, New York district attorney. In an interview with CBS46 anchor Sharon Reed, Thompson says all too often guns sold legally here in Georgia end up in violent crimes in his city.
It may end up in the hands of people who are shooting up our streets, killing our children, and murdering our police officers.
Gun runners use people with clean records to pick up cheap firearms like high-powered rifles in and around Atlanta.
He was taking advantage of lax gun laws down south to bring these guns up north.
Those buyers then travel up the interstates on what's known as the Iron Pipeline to cities like New York where gun laws are strict and sell those weapons for big profits.
Where they were supposed to end up in the hands of criminals.
We're digging in to reveal what law enforcement and local leaders are doing to crack down on illegal gun runners and bad faith dealers. Thompson says he's talking with DAs like Fulton County's Paul Howard.
We ought to come down on them like a ton of bricks.
State Senator Vincent Fort wants to target crooks who knowingly sell to drug dealers, human traffickers, and killers.
Punish bad gun dealers and make sure that people who use guns to hurt people are off the streets.
Fort says he'll introduce that would crack down on gun runners. We asked to speak with DA Paul Howard. A spokesperson tells us he's unavailable, but she says he is planning to meet with New York area DAs to talk about the issue. In downtown Atlanta, Christopher King, CBS 46 News.
And we have much more ahead as CBS 46's unprecedented coverage of the gunfight continues. You can also head to our website right now to see any of the interviews and investigations you may have missed so far. Just head to cbs46.com/gunfight.
Plus, inside the numbers, the surprising statistics on just how many guns are in America and who's using them to kill. That's next in our extended look at the gunfight.
Well, next at 5:30, our special team coverage continues. We're going inside the numbers, looking at where firearms are sold, who's buying them, and even taking a closer look at a touchy subject, black-on-black crime. You won't want to miss it. First, though, a look at some shocking figures. Violent crime has fallen dramatically from the early 1990s. CDC figures show there are more than 18,000 gun homicides in 1993. You see a steady decline since then. In 2011, there were just more than 11,000 gun homicides in the United States. The gunfight continues next. Welcome back. All this week at 4, 5, 6, and 11, CBS 46 News brings you the gunfight. It's unprecedented coverage on gun use in Georgia and beyond. We're bringing you the facts in every report. In a moment, we'll talk about the sometimes uncomfortable and always controversial subject of black-on-black crime. But first, new at 5:30, Kim Passoff takes us inside the numbers.
All this week, our CBS 46 team has been analyzing the numbers. We pulled thousands of statistics, and we want to bring you the most interesting information that we have found. So let's get straight to our CBS 46 smart screen to get inside of the numbers. We want to start with this. In the civilized world, America leads when it comes to gun ownership. For every 100 adults in the United States, you will find 88.8 guns. That's according to the United Nations. And take a look at this. Males lead when it comes to gun violence. 92% of gun murders in the United States are committed by men. That's according to the Department of Justice. And according to the Department of Justice, men also lead when it comes to being victims of gun violence. 82% of people killed by guns in the United States are male. We also want to take a look at gun ownership statistics by race. 31% of gun owners in the United States are white, while 15% are black and 11% are Hispanic. We also want to break it down by region for you. The South, we lead when it comes to gun ownership. 38% of adults own a gun. Compare that to 23% in the West, 22% in the Midwest, and 18% in the Northeast. And we have thousands of more statistics that we want to bring to you, but we can't get them all into this presentation. So you can head on over to CBS46.com and take a look at the numbers for yourself.
Now let's turn to a subject that is tough to talk about for some of us, including me, but we just have to go there. We're talking about black on black crime. I got off the anchor desk. I went to a neighborhood where they see way too much violence. I started talking to people, including a former Metro Atlanta judge, about what must happen to get a grip on this growing epidemic. You know her well in our area, Judge Glenda Hatchett.
When you think about black on black crime and that segment and violent crime, the murders, is there a sense, as some would argue, that if there were more jobs, if there was more hope, there would be less killing of black and brown people by each other?
Well, I think so. And I know that that is a very provocative statement to make. But I do think so, because so much is driven by economics and lack of hope and lack of opportunity. And I'll give you a prime example. When kids in my courtroom, because I was a judge in juvenile court right here in this community for a number of years, start packing weapons to then control their environments, then it's no longer a fist fight. You go, when I was a kid, people would fight to settle it. Then it's a gun situation. So we saw a huge escalation in gun violence, even among juveniles. And what I have said to people is that if they can have the proper education, and if they can feel like there is some opportunity other than coming out here and committing crimes, I think we'd see a shift.
Now, there's a reason Glenda Hatchett became a TV judge, getting her own show. It's because she is a no-nonsense realist with an obviously powerful message, as anyone who's ever appeared in her courtroom before her here in Atlanta knows firsthand. And there's much more. The full report I'm putting together right now. Tonight, all new at 11, black on black crime. You will hear from people in the middle of the inner city battlefield. It is a raw conversation. It's uncomfortable. And at times, it may take you, as it did me, out of your comfort zone. We invite you to join us at 11 o'clock as our expanded coverage of the gunfight continues. And of course, I'll see you in just a few minutes from now, right here for CBS 46 News at 6.
Our CBS 46 contributor Bill Nigett, he's weighing in on our special gunfight coverage.
Bill has tonight's Just a Minute next at 5:56.
Opinions expressed during Just a Minute are not necessarily those of CBS 46 News or its employees. If you want to comment, you can go to CBS46.com and click on the Just a Minute tab. Comment there or on the CBS 46 Facebook page, or send us an email at justaminute@cbs46.com. Polls show Americans want tougher gun laws, but Just a Minute polls also show Americans don't want tougher gun laws. Our CBS 46 contributor Bill Nigett takes a closer look at the confusion.
There's only one way to describe the American public's attitudes about gun control. We're schizophrenic, certifiably uncertain. Consider the latest Gallup poll numbers. Last month, Gallup found that 55% of Americans favor stricter gun laws. And a big majority, 86%, said they favor universal background checks for all gun purchases. So that sounds pretty clear. Americans want some form of gun control. Or do they? There's no greater opponent of stricter gun laws than the NRA. And yet, 58% of the people in the Gallup poll said they have a favorable opinion of NRA. What's more, while the Democrats' leading candidate for president, Hillary Clinton, has made tougher gun laws a major theme of her campaign, and Republicans have barely mentioned the issue, more Americans say the GOP reflects their views on guns. Why the apparent disconnect? Here's my guess. Because of political pressures, we've never been able to find a way to have a frank and open dialogue about how to deal with guns. We are shooting in the dark on a matter of crucial consequence for this country. I'm Bill Nigett.
You can listen to Bill every Friday afternoon on Georgia Public Broadcasting's Political Rewind.
Well, porn, it isn't just confined to so-called girly magazines.
But why are those magazines placed out of the reach at the grocery stores when gun magazines with scantily clad women are readily within reach? Gun porn after the break.
In 2013, there were nearly the same number of deaths by guns as there were by motor vehicles. The CDC numbers show 33,636 deaths by guns, just a few hundred more car deaths at 33,804.
Yeah, the numbers are important. And as we go to break, we want to point something out. To be clear, gun death statistics include suicides that account for about 2/3 of gun deaths every year.
Guns in Georgia. Those words alone spark debate.
All this week, CBS 46 News takes you beyond the headlines and breaks down the facts, pro and con, about guns and the law.
The CBS 46 News team looks at loopholes in the law and the money that influences gun politics.
Plus, the honest prospects about gun control and if it really works.
No matter what your stance is, this unprecedented look at the gun debate will give you new perspective on the issue.
Join us for the gunfight all this week on CBS 46 News.
Today, we are continuing a series of special reports on CBS 46 News. We're calling this the gunfight, and we're looking at gun laws, gun violence, and gun culture here in Georgia.
The next time you're in a grocery store or a convenience store, check out the magazine aisle. As CBS 46 investigative reporter Karen Greer found out, gun porn, as it's called, appears to be more popular than travel or even cooking magazines, and it's in plain sight of children.
Sexually explicit and tabloid magazines are usually kept high up on the shelves to keep them out of the eyes of young children. But it's easy to find magazines like this that some consider gun porn, readily available and right there for young children or anyone to take a gaze.
It just proliferates the spread of guns and glamorizes guns and everything that goes along with it, all the bad things, none of the good things.
For some people, this may be gun porn. They may, get really excited about this stuff, but I think it's their right.
Gun porn is described as photos of guns that display them in the same carefully posed and lighted manner as the models in traditional pornography.
Gun porn is, would be this.
Glossy covers, sexy young women armed and ready to shoot. Handguns, pistols, semi-automatic weapons. The headlines, "Don't be a victim," the ultimate guide for staying alive. What's the message in this one? As this man rows away from a burning city, can you survive an apocalypse?
It really looks brutal, but some of these other handgun buyers things, I mean, if they put them on the top shelf, I mean, kids have always pretended guns and things like that, cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians.
We went undercover to Publix, Kroger, and Walmart to find gun magazines and see where they are in the stores. In one Publix, CBS 46 Investigates found 15 gun magazines, more than travel, cooking, and beauty magazines at eye level and easily accessible to children. This Dr. Seuss display is directly in front of a rifle and gun magazine.
I think gun violence, actually, is exactly what popped into my head. It's scary.
Say the mom is buying milk or whatever, and the kid is, on the next aisle over. Having this where they could just rifle through is a little bit, yeah.
We contacted the stores to get the policy on gun magazines, which ones are covered, and guidelines for how the magazines are displayed. No response. I'm Karen Greer, CBS 46 Investigates.
Our gunfight question of the day asks, would more citizens with guns help prevent mass shootings? So far, 74% of you say yes, more guns are the answer. 21% say no, the fewer the guns, the better. 5% said, I'm not sure. And as we look at guns in Atlanta and Georgia, CBS 46 is not afraid to tackle topics that are uncomfortable for some of us, including me. Tonight at 11, an in-depth look at black-on-black crime. You will hear from people who live in some of Atlanta's most crime-infested areas. In their own words, no filter. We also hear some of you who believe the term black-on-black crime is a major miscue. And we get into that tonight at 11. Our special coverage continues all week on CBS 46 News, CBS46.com, and our mobile app. We invite you to join the conversation on our website and through our social media channels.
The gunfight and black-on-black crime.
At 18, I saw gun violence. I saw a lot of gun violence. D-Day argument lead to later on somebody gonna die. I can't understand why we want to hurt each other and down each other.
We take you to local neighborhoods to explore the various issues surrounding the sensitive topic and the battle to solve them. Black on black crime. The term itself raises ire. I get it. It's an uncomfortable conversation, for me too, but it's one we have to have because the truth is black men are dying on our streets and they're dying at the hands of other black men. We have to figure out more about why it's happening. This may be a good place to start. 52 murders so far, and by far the victims, black men. And here's something else we learned. Of all those dozens of murder victims, only 3 of them made it to the 12th grade.
I feel like black on black crime, if the law killing us and we killing each other, it ain't gonna be no more of us.
First time I got shot, it was on a Friday.
At 18, I saw gun violence. Saw a lot of gun violence. I done been shot before when I was younger.
He shot me again. He shot me in my leg. That's when I fell.
We're shooting each other because we envy each other and we want what the other man has.
They argument lead to later on somebody gonna die. The poverty, you know, jobs, no jobs.
When he pulled the pills out, he hit me on the back of the head and shot me in my arm.
We go all the way back to how we getting taught as young men. I was in the school for 8 years, 12 years, and I never learned nothing. The majority of us, we get left behind. So once we get left behind, we want to take what the ones that made it through the cracks, we want to take what they have. But what I don't experience is black helping blacks. I don't experience that.
When people see something that you got and they want it, they don't got it. So around the fact, they're gonna try to come and get it.
I don't see no one come out here black that try to help out. You understand? And I don't see that no more. And you only know what you see. So if I saw gun violence my whole life and I saw my big brother do something wrong to the next person to get what he wanted, then maybe I'm gonna have to get what I want the same way.
A lot of black people feel like the only way to get that is to invade another black man's space instead of going out, getting a job, and starting from the bottom to the top.
I can't understand why we want to hurt each other and criticize each other and down each other.
Are black people more often the killer of other blacks? Yes, but the numbers don't lie about white people either. 84% of white murder victims were killed by other whites, and that's from the Department of Justice. And do black people somehow feel different about matters of life and death? And do the images we see on TV really back up the stats? These are conversations that we have in African-American homes every day.
Every day. And it is real. And I am concerned about the fact that too many black people are killing black people.
But Glenda Hatchett, former chief presiding judge of the Fulton County Juvenile Court, warns, don't get caught up in statistics because they can be spun in a number of ways to suit competing agendas. Judge, there seems to be confusion, controversy.
Yep. There
black on black crime, it's not that simple.
It's not that simple because if you look statistically, there are more white people committing crimes against white people than there are black people committing crimes against black people.
But it's the rate of the killings compared to the sheer numbers that alarm Hatchett and so many others. Recent data from the Atlanta Police Department shows 92% of the victims killed this year are black.
We have got to really look particularly at what's going on in Georgia. And Georgia is 27% higher for gun-related violence than the national norm. That should be of great concern to us.
Why?
I mean, we've had a recent bill passed by the legislature in the state that says that you can take guns into restaurants, into schools, and a number of public places now. And that's okay. And we have got to get away from this Wild West mentality. There were more people between 2000 and 2010 killed in Georgia by guns than people who died in that same period in in war in Afghanistan, more Americans that died in Afghanistan. And that's really telling. And what I have said to people is that if they can have the proper education and if they can feel like there is some opportunity other than coming out here and committing crimes, I think we'd see a shift.
Clearly, Judge Hatchett said a lot there that people would agree with, but the question is, what would she do now in your conversation with her that she believes would actually stop some bloodshed?
You know, I asked her that, and what she would do is more of what she's already done. And we'll get into much of that tomorrow, but Judge Hatchett points to her own record on the bench for the answer to lifting young minds, changing the course of lives. Tomorrow at 5, something she started. She did it so well, criminals stopped coming back to her courtroom. Also tomorrow, our gunfight series continues. CBS 46 investigative reporter Art Harris shows us the loopholes with buying guns in Georgia, and that starts tomorrow at 4 p.m.
And tomorrow at 5, my reality check will take a look at whether the city of Atlanta is breaking state law by stockpiling guns that are required to be sold to licensed dealers. It's a reality check you won't see anywhere else.
Drivers running people off the road. Now there's a growing number of cases where some of them are pulling out guns. Jillian Johnson taking a closer look at extreme road rage. That's tomorrow at 6.
And we also look at the most violent generation, the most dangerous age group in the country when it comes to committing gun violence. Mike Dunstan has that tomorrow night at 11.